Delmarva Today with Don Rush.
Purdue Farms finds PFAS forever chemicals at its Salisbury plant. An investigation is underway. Local organizations are gearing up to help the victims of Hurricane Helene. Longshoremen's strike threatens the regional economy, depending on how long it lasts. And there is discontent among residents over the future of Route 589. Welcome to Delmarva Today. This is Don Rush. In our studio this afternoon is Coastal Point reporter Susan Canfor. Welcome to the program.
Hi, Don.
So first of all, Susan, the big news around here has been the discovery of the PFAS forever chemicals at the Purdue plant in Salisbury. I understand the company is contracting with an independent consultant to try to trace the source, but they do say the plant does not use any PFAS chemicals at the facility. So what do we know?
Well, we know Purdue Farms this week sent out some letters to more than 500 residents, and those letters were telling them that elevated levels of PFAS, which is polyfluoroalkyl substance, and known, like you said, as a forever chemical, has been detected in groundwater near Zion, Parker, and Old Ocean City roads. PFAS is a group of man-made chemicals that some companies like because they resist heat and grease and water. It's found in non-stick pans and pots and in the foam that firefighters use to put out fires. It's a synthetic chemical, and it's been around since about 1950, but if it's ingested or if it gets into your body through your skin, it has been linked to cancer, developmental issues, and a weakened immune system. That is according to the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences. Purdue sent out explanatory letters to 550 residents in that area on those streets, and the vice president of environmental sustainability at Purdue, Drew Getty, said the source is not known and more information is needed.
The source of the PFAS at the facility has not yet been determined. It's important to note that we do not use PFAS chemicals in our manufacturing process. We're committed to conducting a thorough review and are looking closely at all possibilities for these elevated levels, including other potential sources in the area. And we will keep the community updated on the findings as we move through this process.
Residents in that area are being asked if they have wells, and if they do, if Purdue can go on their property and test the water. PFAS was discovered to be in the Purdue agribusiness facility, and the levels were elevated, and that's according to a spokesman from the Maryland Department of Environment, Water, and Science Administration. Levels were above federal drinking water standards, so what happens now? Information will be gathered, samples taken, lab testing, and in about 2 weeks, it should be known whether or not more testing is needed and if anything can be done to treat the water if the water is affected. Purdue officials are saying the company will fully participate, that Purdue Farms has been in Salisbury more than 100 years, and Purdue values local residents and wants to be a good neighbor.
So, Susan, the other big news around here has been the fact that we have the longshoremen strike, and apparently that will have an impact on this region. Comes after actually the shutdown of the Port of Baltimore with the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge. How are things looking? What do we know? What's the local reaction so far?
It looks like thousands of longshoremen have walked off the job for the first strike in nearly 50 years, and that comes after the shutdown of the Port of Baltimore after the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge. Bill Chambers, who's the president and CEO of the Salisbury Area Chamber of Commerce, says that the region could feel the squeeze if the strike lasts more than a couple of weeks.
It needs to get solved as quickly as possible. I hope the president will invoke the abilities that he has to put a pause on the strike for 80 days and let the two sides figure this out, because this is not good for anyone. In particular, we're just recovering from a 2-month shutdown of the Port of Baltimore because of the bridge. Now we have those 2,400 workers. They're back out of work. This is a bigger blow for Maryland than any other port in the country.
Chambers says he expects small businesses to be hit the hardest, as they were during the pandemic and after the collapse of that bridge in Baltimore. But he said big box stores will probably have the resources to carry large inventories to weather this economic storm.
So meanwhile, we have obviously a group of people who are dealing with this Hurricane Helene. We've seen, as a matter of fact, thousands of people millions of people for that matter, have been out of their own homes, lots of water. And we also understand that our local organizations are gearing up to help those victims. And we've been keeping in touch with actually a couple of groups. What do we hear?
I got word this week from former Delaware Representative Ruth Briggs King, who's now running for lieutenant governor. She sent out a news release that says in Sussex County, residents who would like to help the victims of Hurricane Helene that affected Florida and other states can drop off items at Old Paths Storehouse on Redden Road in Georgetown from 9 o'clock until noon today, Friday, October 4th. There are also drop-off sites in Kent and Newcastle counties. Briggs King said just about everything is needed, from cleaning supplies, personal hygiene items, boxed rice and pasta, beans, flashlights, blankets, sheets. Several churches in Delaware are also helping. The Reverend Rebecca Collison, she's the pastor of Mariners Bethel Global Methodist Church in Ocean View, said church officials have contacted churches where the hurricane hit to determine the needs, and church members are also collecting items for victims, as well as encouraging those church members to make financial donations.
What we're collecting are things like heavy-duty trash bags, sponges, various sizes of diapers, hygiene products for men and women. Those are what's needed the most right now from what we understand, in addition to bottled water. And we are just trying to meet the need where we are and be the hands and feet of Christ while we do it.
I also talked to the Reverend Karis Graham. She's the pastor of Community Lutheran Church near Frankfort, Delaware, and she compared the devastation caused by the storm to losing everything you love. She said your animals, your home, your beloved in some cases, that's the level of loss and deep grief. Donations can be made through the Lutheran Disaster Response. Several other churches are taking offerings for victims, including St. Martha's Episcopal Church in Bethany Beach is also collecting donations, and St. Anne Catholic Church in Bethany Beach is helping with a collection, and also through the St. Vincent de Paul Society. Meanwhile, in Dorchester County, a group of residents has mobilized to provide urgent relief to the devastated areas. A group called the Eastern Shore Hurricane Committee has begun to collect supplies by an organization called Hurricane Helene Airlift Relief. They will use helicopters and private planes to take the supplies into the stricken area to avoid the blocked roads and collapsed bridges. Michael Detmer is one of the organizers, and he spoke of his reaction to the devastation that spurred him and others to form the ad hoc committee.
The level of devastation from my friend who's a combat veteran, just his description of the devastation between where he was and Asheville, and just saying, entire towns are just gone. And I know this is somebody that's seen bad circumstances before and is not prone to hyperbole. And just hearing that from him, it was just very impactful to me.
This group is providing donated items ranging from hygiene products to can openers and cleaning supplies. The committee is also using a vehicle provided by Koski Trucking to take the supplies to the staging area.
So you've been obviously watching the news. What do you make of the devastation? You and I were here, I believe, for Hurricane Sandy and also for, obviously, Katrina. Looks really bad.
We were, and I remember in 1985 when Hurricane Gloria took the boardwalk, most of the boardwalk off in Ocean City, and that was just the tail end of Gloria. This was a hurricane beyond what I've ever seen before, Don. Some of the destruction and the videos that I've seen. I have a cousin who lives in Asheville, and I talked to her the other day. I couldn't reach her for like 3 days, and I was so worried. She's my first cousin, and we're very close, and I was very concerned. And I finally go through. She said there had been no cell phone service, no telephone service. She finally texted me back at like midnight a couple nights ago and said they were fine. She and her husband are trying to cook on a gas fireplace in their house, and they're waiting for supplies to come. She said every day somebody knocks on their door and says, please help, we lost family members. Have you seen anybody? Every day there's somebody else with a broken heart. She said it's just devastating there in Asheville.
So, what is that like? To give you a sense about being so isolated. Is the water up near where they are? What's it?
She said they had 8 to 10 inches of rain before the hurricane even hit, and there's just tremendous flooding, and the towns are separated from each other by water, and some of the towns, like that gentleman just said, are just gone. And it's just, the word she kept using in her text message was heartbreaking. She said, we were just heartbroken.
Have they been able to get out of their house? And
not in recent
days. They're stuck so far?
They're still in their house. In recent days, they've been still in their house, yes. So I'm keeping a close eye on her to make sure she's okay.
Well, we hope everything turns out okay.
Thank you.
So, Susan, I also want to turn to an uproar over the effort to change the land use around Route 589 that would move it from agricultural zoning to commercial use. I understand about 15 parcels, I guess, are involved, but I also understand Worcester County Commission President Chip Bertino doesn't like that change. What's going on?
Right. I live in Ocean Pines, and I can tell you some residents of Ocean Pines are not too pleased after this near unanimous vote to change the land use designation from agricultural to commercial for 15 sections of land on Route 589, and that's the road that runs from Route 50 in Berlin north to Route 113. The request got a favorable recommendation from the Worcester County Planning Commission and a yes vote from every Worcester County commissioner except Chip Bertino, and he represents Ocean Pines. The vote followed a request in February from attorney Mark Cropper. He represents Racetrack Plaza, LLC, and that request was to change the land use for property his client bought. And that property is right on 589 near Gum Point Road. The rumor is that property is going to be used for a new grocery store, and residents are hoping for a Trader Joe's, but there's no confirmation yet.
So is this expected then to increase traffic? I mean, I'm assuming that's one of the objections.
My gosh, I can't imagine it could get much worse. The traffic, there's just a two-lane street there. It was widened in front of the racetrack, but it's still two-lane highway from the racetrack all the way to the south gate where I live, to the north gate, and all the way north to 113. The traffic is already backed up. On Fridays, you're in line for 15 or 20 minutes just to get to the grocery store. So I can imagine this would make it much, much worse.
I mean, is this, do you expect it to be even worse than when it, say, for instance, we're looking at the tourist season? I mean, as opposed to, although the tourist season seems to be extending out here with all the festivals.
With the tourist season combined, unless there's some kind of an agreement with the Department of Transportation to widen that road there, if there is a grocery store there, I can't imagine. It would just be an absolute traffic mess.
Also, we have, Susan, the dunes breaches near the Indian River Inlet. Apparently, some of them getting some attention as well as some money to fix them. Also understand that Senator Tom Carper was actually out there, I believe last week. What do we hear? Are we going to get a lot of money in order to solve this problem?
Yeah, pretty much a lot of money, pretty much money. Delaware Senator Tom Carper was there. He was at the Indian River Inlet last Friday, and I was there with other reporters. He said he was there to celebrate obtaining $10 million in state funding and another $15 in federal funding to widen the beach there and strengthen the dunes. The work is being done now instead of later as it was originally planned. After twice this year, ocean water breached the dunes and washed over Route 1, flooding it and halting bridge access. And that caused concerned constituents, and they were quick to call Senator Carper's office. He said when he was elected as state treasurer more than 40 years ago, there was concern about flooding on Route 1. He said it was a problem then, it was a problem when he was a congressman, it was a problem when he was a governor, and it continues to be a problem. But he said, in adversity lies opportunity, and one of the great things we have going for us is opportunity.
People are not quiet. Let's get this fixed permanently so that we won't have to come back year after year after year and put another Band-Aid on. Let's see if we can't fix it permanently. That's what I hope we accomplish. If we can do that, I want to be able, years in the future, drive up and down State Route 1, go over this bridge, and know that we fixed the problem once and for all.
And when he said he was going off into the sunset, what he meant was he's not running for re-election. But at age 77, he's going to retire as senator. He told me he's going to get involved in some other endeavors, but he wouldn't exactly specify what other endeavors. But if I know Senator Carper, he'll get involved in something after his retirement.
So, I mean, right, he's going to be retiring here, and it looks as if he's going to be succeeded here. What's his sense about his legacy?
He has a wonderful legacy. Some of the people who were with him when he was at the Inlet last week included Delaware Senator Gerald Hawker, who said without him, he doesn't know what Delaware would do. He also talked about the fact that we better be very careful because if we have a storm like that storm, like Hurricane Helene, we're not going to have the evacuation routes we need, and it's very important to make sure those beaches are widened. He said he remembered a time when that beach was 300 feet wide there at the Indian River. I can't even imagine that now because you could barely walk on it now. I can't even imagine it that wide. But Senator Hawker thanked him for getting this money and said we have to be very careful about that. And so did Ron Gray. He's one of the delegates there in Delaware. And he said without him, he doesn't know what we would do. So he has a legacy for helping, for coming to the rescue. He has a very homey, down home kind of an attitude when he comes. The whole room changes. He shakes hands with everybody before he even starts a press conference. Make sure he compliments everybody and shakes hands and tells everybody how nice they look. He's just a fine Eastern Shore gentleman who's very well respected. And I can't imagine Delaware without him after January when he retires.
I mean, because I know, as a matter of fact, I mean, I've actually followed him around in order to get an interview, and he's got to shake everybody's hands before he
does.
Gets there.
He talks about his kids, and he introduced one woman there who was expecting a baby who's on his staff, and he asked her if it was a boy or a girl. He said, "We only raise boys in our family, but we have daughters-in-law." And of course, we're all waiting to see what he's going to say about the funding, but he has to get all that out of the way first. But it's very endearing. He's just an dear man. He really is. We think the world of him.
Also, I mean, we assume then, of course, he's retiring. Lisa Blunt Rochester, she is running and looks like she would probably take the seat. Do we expect a dramatic difference, do you think, between the two of them? I mean, because he's kind of folksy, right?
Yes, he's folksy.
She'll also be the first African-American and African-American woman, for that matter, to represent the state. Right. What is there a style difference here, do you think?
I've seen her, and I've covered her over the years, and I've seen her, especially in last year when she's come more to the forefront. She has a very friendly attitude as well. Not quite like Senator Carper. He's his own man. He has his own kind of a style. But I think she'll be just as good as far as with constituents and talking to constituents and having that friendly attitude. A little different. She has her own style, but she'll be accepted and embraced, I think, by the Delaware people.
And of course, her district, obviously the entire state, so she has familiarity with just about everything.
Oh, yes, she does.
So also, we got elections, not the national ones, but in Ocean City, we got elections. What are we looking here? And understand Rick Meehan, again, for another term.
Rick Meehan, who I remember as a young man when he first got on the Ocean City Council back in 1985 when I came here. He's running for his 10th term as the mayor of Ocean City. The Ocean City election this year will be on November 5th from 7 in the morning until 8 at night at the Ocean City Convention Center, and the candidates have until October 15th to register. Along with the mayor's seat, there are 4 council seats available for re-election or for election, and they include seats now occupied by Councilman Pete Buyus, Tony DeLuca, John Gehrig, and Frank Knight. And the candidates include DeLuca, who is the only incumbent who has filed, Larry Yates, George Lucal, Tony DeSanctis, Dennis Jenkins, and Leslie Smith. So we'll be covering that election, and we'll let you know who wins.
So tell me, so Rick Meehan, he's been a fixture. I mean, he comes actually after Tim Mathias, who seemed like he was going to be there forever, as it were. What kind of style do we see out of him after all these years? When I interviewed him, he really seems more like sort of the average sort of like solid businessman, business community, that kind of thing.
Exactly. He is a solid businessman. He's also a family man. I remember him years ago on the boardwalk pushing one stroller with one child and his wife at that time, pushing another stroller with another child. He is a businessman. He's very approachable. He has Ocean City as in the center of his heart. He really cares about what happens to Ocean City. He wants to be mayor. He wants to be there to make sure the town progresses as it grows. He wants to be sure that things are done right. As you know, he's against wind power. He's very interested in what the constituents say. He's available. He's been a very good mayor. He's been very popular, and I think we'll probably see him. We'll probably see him win one more time.
So, speaking of wind, we obviously had some kind of hearing, I guess it was, by the folks who are pushing this wind farm off the coast, the government officials as well. What's the situation there? I mean, we also have the original project, which is much, much further out. Now there's talk about maybe being 3 miles out for another project. What temperature do you get in terms of Ocean City and this wind thing? Because it's going to be going on for a while.
From what I hear, and I'm in Ocean City a lot. I don't cover Ocean City anymore, but I'm in Ocean City a lot. And from what I hear is they don't care how far out it is. They just don't want it. They don't want those windmills anywhere near their sunrises and their sunsets. And Rick, of course, listens to the constituents, and he will defend them and fight against it. And I think the town still has a lawsuit pending, if I'm not mistaken, just to stop it completely. They just do not want it, period.
And, of course, they have a lot of support from the delegation, not only, obviously, Congressman Andy Harris, but Mary Beth Carrozza, state senator. I mean, there seems to be a lot of political pushback on this, but any sense about where this goes? I mean...
Well, Ocean City brings a lot of money into Maryland, so you know what the constituents want more than likely is what's going to happen. But there's also the concern about green energy, so it's going to be interesting to watch it unfold over the months.
So is his basic concern tourism, or I mean, obviously he has other concerns as well, but That seems to be the focus.
Yeah, well, he's very concerned about Ocean City, about the environment. He's listed when you've talked to him, he's listed many reasons why he doesn't like the wind power. Things like, danger to the whales and other sea life, and also, of course, the view, and, problems with the internet. I've heard all kinds of things. Some are just rumor. Some just are people saying we don't want it. We just don't like it. It's new. It's unfamiliar to us. We just don't like it. But Rick is very logical, and his reasons are solid. But he also defends the constituents.
Well, we've been speaking with Susan Canfor. She's a reporter for Coastal Point. Appreciate you stopping by and chatting with us this afternoon.
Thank you, Don. It's always a pleasure.
You're listening to Delmarva Today. This is Don Rush.
Delmarva Today with Don Rush.